By late 1943, Germany was losing the war. They needed tanks, and lots of them, if they were going to wrestle back the initiative.
Instead, they became obsessed with wonder weapons they hoped would change their fate.
From the logistical paralysis of King Tiger, growing ever bigger and more unwieldy with the mouse, and ultimately reaching the madness of the 1,000-ton Ratte.
Much like Augustus Gloop, German tank development in the Second World War greedily ate up more and more resources.
Whilst an absolute boon for the historians working here at the Tank Museum, it made no logical sense. What were they thinking?
This is the bewildering story of the Super Heavies.
The German pursuit for a heavier tank started out sensibly enough. As the invasion of the Soviet Union progressed, German tanks got a nasty surprise. Whilst the Panzer IIIs and IVs were great in Western Europe and North Africa, they met their match in the Soviets' new T-34 and KV-1 tanks during Operation Barbarossa. They might not have been the prettiest or the most comfortable drive, but they were cheap, easy to mass produce, quick to repair, easily replaceable, and reliable in harsher conditions. So the Germans established a special Panzer Commission to examine the issue.
They concluded that imitation was the best form of flattery and drafted a specification that copied all the best innovations of Soviet armour.
And that is how the Panther was born, by imitating what made the T-34 so good. A longer gun for increased firepower, wider tracks to improve cross-country mobility, and sloped armour to enhance protection.
Born out of necessity, the Panther's speed and mobility, coupled with its armour and firepower, made it arguably the best all-round German tank of the war.
Rushed into production in time for the Battle of Kursk in 1943, General Hasso von Manteuffel described it as the Army's most satisfactory tank.
That's German for really rather good.
The Soviets weren't resting on their laurels, and the Germans knew it. So with a dose of paranoia, they began trying to figure out what the Soviets would make next. And that is where the madness began.
The nature of war is that you go to battle in your best tank, realise the enemy has a better one, and then run home to build an even better one. The Allies and the Germans were both playing the same game, but they went about it in different ways.
The largest manufacturers of armoured vehicles during the Second World War were the Americans and the Soviets, and they agreed on one key point: quantity has a quality of its own. M4 Shermans and T-34s flooded the battlefield. Both were excellent tanks, but neither was perfect, especially as the Germans reacted to their strengths. But crucially, the Allies focused on up-armouring and up-gunning their key tanks without major disruption to production lines and resource requirements. They embraced evolution instead of revolution. A very sensible idea: maximise valuable resources and get a bigger gun to boot. So, what were the Germans doing?
Rather than refine the best tanks they already had, they decided on a maximalist approach.
We need a bigger gun, which means we need a bigger turret, so the chassis will need to grow, and obviously we need more armour to protect it all.
Before long, specs ballooned into a 100+ caliber gun and weighing up to 100 tons. Nothing like this existed, so yet again the Germans had to start from scratch. What could possibly go wrong?
The term super heavy tank isn't used anymore, but many nations dallied with the concept at one time or another. The US T-28 for one, and of course the UK's infamous TOG 2. But the Germans, they were really into their super heavies and determined to make them work.
The Tiger II, or King Tiger, was their first real answer to the question of, what do we build next? It was on the drawing board almost as soon as the Tiger I entered service. The gun fitted to Tiger II was an 8.8cm KWK-43, the successor to the KWK-36 mounted on Tiger I. And the design borrowed the idea of sloped armour from the Panther, increasing its protection significantly.
Unfortunately, this wasn't the only thing pinched from the Panther. Despite being 25 tons heavier, The King Tiger was fitted with the same HL-230 engine and simply wasn't up to the job of powering such a beast. On top of that, there weren't enough spare parts. Field units lacked the engineering skills to fix them, and the creaking supply line could not keep up with the insatiable requirement for oil and fuel. Tiger II was a white elephant, and an expensive one at that, costing 25% more than a Tiger I and taking way longer to build. Sure, it was an amazing tank, but they only made 492 of them, and for that, they could have had almost 1,500 Panthers instead, as well as a simpler supply chain, no development costs, and additional crew training. And yet, the Germans were still not done with Super Heavies.
Unburdened by logic, reason, or sensible allocation of resources, they set to work on the Jagdtiger, the heaviest armoured fighting vehicle on the World War II battlefield.
Based on the length and chassis of a Tiger II, this tank destroyer could knock out any Allied armour up to 2 miles away. But it would have to get there first, and that's easier said than done.
This behemoth weighed in at a whopping 72 tonnes, meaning it was barely transportable by rail. And yet it was still only powered by the HL-230 engine. Let me reiterate, the Panther weighs 45 tonnes. The Jagdtiger is 60% heavier and ran on the same engine. The immense pressure this put on the mechanical components made the Jagdtiger incredibly unreliable, and its unprecedented weight meant that it was unrecoverable on the battlefield.
This meant if your Jagdtiger broke down, which let's be honest it more than likely was going to, and you couldn't repair it in the field, which again it's unlikely you'd have the skills or equipment to do so, you would have to blow it up to deny it to the enemy. This was an incredibly wasteful and unsustainable system.
Only 80 were made, a meagre return on the invaluable development resources. But even that was not enough to scratch the Super Heavy itch.
The final Super Heavy ever produced was the legendary Panzer VIII Maus. Only 2 of these were ever completed, and the sole survivor is at the Kubinka Tank Museum in Russia. But we do have a piece of this 188-ton beast in our collection. This optical gun sight is likely the only piece of the original Maus program to end up in this country, and it is extraordinary that we have this in our collection. Almost as extraordinary as the Maus itself, which quite frankly was completely outrageous. German High Command predicted heavier Soviet tanks would appear in the spring of 1943, and the army would need tanks pushing upwards of 70 tons to counter them. So Porsche was awarded the contract for a 100-ton tank to be ready for 1944, a very ambitious timeline. Amazingly, the Maus had some success during initial tests, but the project was cancelled in October of 1944. You may have thought that the cancellation was due to someone realising that the weight was completely impractical and that the resource requirements were unjustifiable. But no, before its cancellation, Hitler was keen to add more components to the Maus, increasing its final projected weight at almost double, being 188 tons. The real reason for the cancellation was an Allied bombing raid on the Krupp factory, which destroyed the original schematics for the tank as well as the means for its production. Ironically, the Allies probably saved the Germans from wasting more resources on this folly.
Yet these were the vehicles that actually made it into production. There were more equally baffling designs that never made it onto the factory floor, and these are aptly called paper panzers. If you're enjoying this video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing. It really helps us beat the YouTube algorithm and gets this video to a wider audience. And if you want to see some of the vehicles mentioned in this video in real life, as well as the only original running Tiger I, check out our Tiger Day event and grab your tickets now before they sell out. Now, back to the video.
The paper panzers were the ideas that never managed to fight their way off the page. In some cases, these designs were drawn up to throw the Allies off their game. The Panzers 9 and 10 were only intended as propaganda tools to boost the image of the Third Reich at a time where it was getting pummeled. But some ideas did start to move from theory to reality.
The Panzer VII was a design led by Krupp for a tank so strongly armoured no known enemy anti-tank gun could penetrate.
It was also specified to be lighter than 90 tons to ensure it was possible to be transported by rail.
It was originally supposed to have an engine from a torpedo boat, but once again it was stuck with the HL-230. Presumably there was a torpedo boat somewhere in greater need of an engine than the tank.
The design was approved in April 1942, with Krupp instructed to build 2 Entwicklungsfahrzeuge. The project's name was soon changed to Löwe, meaning lion, bringing it in line with the other big cats. But such was the mania to pursue even heavier tanks by July 1942, a mere 4 months after approval, the contract was rescinded and the Lion sent back to its cage.
After the Löwe was cancelled, Krupp set to work on a design similar to Porsche's Maus, a project called E100, part of the Entwicklung series of tank designs. Krupp were ordered to use Tiger components in their design to reduce weight and increase reliability of the vehicle, and so the project soon became known as the Tiger Maus. Amazingly, the E100 looked like it might just work, and a production contract was awarded to Adler, so Krupp could continue with their production of Stugs and Panzer IVs. Finally, a vaguely sensible decision. But not everyone was convinced by the E100's design. Dr. Karl Jensk, technical director of Adler Works, was deeply skeptical that the proposed 15cm KWK-44 L38 gun would even fit in the E100's turret, and he considered the design obsolete. When a prototype hull was captured by the British in 1945, it was clear that very little progress had been made. No one ever got to see the Tiger Maus roar.
The E100, over 30 feet in length and with armour nearly 10 inches thick, would have weighed a phenomenal 140 tons, but would have only been powered by an 800 horsepower engine, so performance would hardly have been spectacular.
At least the Lion and E100 were based in reality, others were just pure fantasy.
The Ratte was a proposed 1,000-ton Landkreuzer. Impractical on so many levels, it's hard to know where to start. And yet, this outlandish project allegedly gained Hitler's personal approval.
Some historians believe the only reason more time wasn't wasted on the idea was that Reichsminister Albert Speer got sight of the blueprints, recognised its impracticality, and promptly cancelled it.
So, were the German Super Heavies worth it?
Short answer, no.
A question we were asking ourselves again and again whilst doing the research for this film was, what were they thinking?
As the war progressed, Hitler was becoming unhinged in various ways, not least with his obsession with runaway tank design, with Hitler's advisor Heinz Guderian claiming that Hitler's fantasies sometimes shifted into the gigantic.
He was convinced that Panther and Tiger would only last a year before becoming outdated, and designs like King Tiger and even Maus were necessary. But in reality, the obsessive focus on super heavy tanks was a delusion.
If the Germans had focused on maximising the potential of the Tiger through making better versions of the deadly 88mm gun, more efficient production methods, better reliability and improved support out in the field, that would have made a bigger impact on the battlefield.
Even churning out lots more Panthers could have been more effective. After all, the Allies proved that with the Sherman and the T-34 that you didn't always have to have the best tank in the field, just lots of them.
Yet instead, each increasingly outrageous design hoovered up time, energy and money that Germany could not afford to waste. And even if any of the Super Heavies had worked properly, there would never have been enough of them to turn the tide of war.
But the Nazi system wasn't rational. Hitler was obsessed with the idea of superweapons and was surrounded by sycophants in his high command, eager to do his bidding.
German companies like Krupp, Porsche, Daimler-Benz were more than happy to develop ever more preposterous designs. The more ambitious the design, the greater the chance of catching the Führer's eye and the better the chance of landing a juicy contract.
So no, it wasn't worth it, but it does stand as a cautionary tale for megalomaniac dictators everywhere.
And it does help explain why the Allies won the war.